Welcome, fight fans. I am your host, Jeff Bolts, and this is the Sweet Science 365. We talk about boxing related topics. Thank you guys for tuning in. This is episode 5, where we're going to talk about some controversial judging going on throughout the history of boxing, but seems to be a big topic for the month of May. We're also going to talk about the refs, some of the things that can be fixed going on in the sport to actually try to fix it right now as we speak. A little bit something from Teddy Atlas that we'll get into that he's trying to develop himself. I 100% support it. So we'll get into that. But we're also going to talk about, we're not going to let that overshadow the amazing month of May for boxing, the amazing 5 first months of the year for boxing, and see what the second half holds for the sport. And we're also going to delve into the Crawford Spence. We're going to delve into Inoue, Fulton, guys like that. And we're going to delve into the fight card that I watched yesterday, Eye of the Tiger. You guys held a great fight card up in Toronto. Super impressed with what you guys did there. I was skeptical of the first couple of fights, but I stuck with it, and I was actually happy I stuck with that. 4 amazing fights, great fight card altogether. I think it was like 6 or 7 fights. But overall, the last 4 fights were something to watch. Found me a couple young fighters, and then once again, judging was an issue up in Toronto. We'll get into that with the Shabbat versus Bolaños fight. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. Shabbat versus Bolaños. Some judging controversy there in that fight, but we're going to get into that also. The first half of my show pretty much is going to be consistently talking about. I kind of just what boxing can do. So let's get into it, man. Let's talk about it. Uh, I don't want it to become the basis of my show. I don't want it to be the Debbie Downer of the show because I don't want it to overshadow how awesome May was, how awesome April was, how awesome March was for the month for boxing. I mean, overall, how great it was here, what happened. But like always, boxing's always got controversy since the beginning of boxing. It's been part of the sport controversy, and it's because it's a wild, wild west of sports. It has no really overseeing committee. Nobody is held accountable for anything they do in boxing. These refs, these judges, promoters, managers, fighters, nobody is held responsible. Mainly the fighters are held more responsible than anybody when they're tested for PEDs and stuff like that. But they have no control if a judge makes a bad card and they can't, it doesn't do anything for them. Like there's no repercussions for that judge. It's not like you go back and that guy's rewarded that fight or they take that loss off of his record. Now that loss is there and it will always be there, and it will be because one person made a bad call, one person made a controversial judging call that you had to question. Who are these judges? Where are they coming from? Who's paying them? Who's choosing them? I mean, is it the Nevada State Commission chooses these judges? I mean, all through the month of May, starting with the Canelo Ryder fight, you had an outright like right away. You had a controversy about judging when the all 3 judges. It was supposed to be a Mexican judge, American judge, and a Puerto Rican judge. 2 of the judges at the last moment, the American judge and Puerto Rican judge, were pulled out and replaced with 2 Mexican judges. So it gave 3 Mexican judges on the card. On that whole card, which was heavily dominated with Mexican fighters. Then you had a controversial fight decision, which I thought was a tough fight overall. I'm not going to say C. Sparks got robbed, but it was a very close decision. He could have won the fight, but he wasn't going to get that fight, not with 3 Mexican judges. There was no way that was going to happen. That if that was a close fight, he was never going to get the decision. They knew that. They weren't going to pick the American fighter over the Mexican fighter or wherever he's actually from. I don't want to say Sparks is American. He might be British, whatever it is. I think he's actually from the UK. So I'll rebuttal what I said uh, with that. But anyways, just controversy, and you shouldn't have that. You shouldn't have 3 American judges. You shouldn't have 3 Mexican judges, and you got Taylor right now calling that Nevada make sure that the judges are fair, that there's three judges from different places judging this fight, and that it's not three American judges, because these guys are so worried that in a close fight, it's coming down to people that have other alternatives and other people in their pocket. They're not watching the fight. There's no way in hell Dave Moretti is watching any fight when he scored the Garcia versus Davis fight, the second round where Garcia got knocked down, and he scored that a 10-10 round. There's no way. What is he watching? How do you score that? Automatically when he gets knocked down, that's a 10-8 round. 10-8. Right off the rip. Not 10-9. He got knocked down. That's a 10-8 round, and he scored it 10-10. It's stuff like that. Dave Moretti is 70 years old. Get him out of the sport. That's what I got to say about Dave Moretti. That's how you fix that issue. Just get guys like that out. If you're old and you don't understand the sport and your scorecards are reflecting your age and what you're seeing, what you're not seeing, then you need to be out of the sport. Uh, let's talk about Teddy Atlas has brought up a boxing reform petition where he wants to make a national committee, and this is only going to be in the U.S. That's the thing about boxing, man. It is worldwide, so it's hard to get all this together because the British Boxing Committee already has their thing over in the UK. They're not going to ever let America have any kind of say over that committee over there. So to have a unified one giant committee would be awesome, but it's more likely not going to happen because too many people have too much money in their pocket from different things. But Teddy Atlas is talking about reforming in the U.S., getting rid of these small committees and bringing in one national committee. Uh, I think honestly, you got to get younger judges. You have to get younger refs at this point. Baseball did a study in the Major League Baseball, and umpires that were 50 years and older were making the worst calls. The umpires that were 30 and up, 30, under the age of 50, 30 to 50, were making the more consistent calls. So it's telling you that at some point it sucks, but you got to push the older generation out, and you got to start bringing in a new generation to push your sport to the next level, get it to the next era. Boxing has so much potential, and America loves fighting. They love that type of violence. They love it. So, but what they don't like is they don't like controversy. They don't like judging controversy. They don't like not knowing that, hey, the best fighter won that fight. They don't like leaving knowing that. Like, that's the worst thing in the world. I think Max Kellerman said it. It's a simple 10-point scoring. He thinks you should change the scoring uh, outlook of it. That's how you fix it. I don't think that's how you fix it at all because, how do you get two judges that score correct and one judge that's off the wall? It doesn't matter what your scoring system is. If that one judge has something else, an alternative in his pocket, that he's got another reason he's going to score that fight and off the wall and he's not held accountable for it, the scoring system doesn't matter. It's the judges. If you don't fix the judges, if you don't stop that, Dave Moretti, who was it? Benjamin Rodriguez this week. Yeah, we'll call you out, buddy. Just where this guy come from? Nobody can tell you who Benjamin Rodriguez is. He was part of the Billum Smith versus Aloki fight last weekend, where Billum Smith absolutely dominated the fight, knocks him down twice, and the guy's scorecard a draw. Reflects a draw, if I'm correct. Benjamin Rodriguez. Uh, or a Loki who got knocked down twice and was deducted 2 points. The guy scored the fight a draw. That's the kind of stuff. Benjamin Rodriguez, nobody knows who he is, where he came from. That's the problem with boxing. You not only need to get younger judges, but they need to, just like in Major League Baseball, these guys don't just come off the street or in the NFL or in any other sport. Do you just bring some hoorah off the street to judge something that they don't know anything about? You want to make sure the guys are judging are your most professional guys, former fighters, former trainers, managers, guys who have been in the sport, people who love the sport, who know how to judge. I think Ring Magazine has actual judging things where you can go in and you can judge these fights and they have a list of their top judging people, and you can make that list. Why not go to that and take off that list and start bringing these guys in to make judges? You make plenty of money in the sport of boxing that you can clearly pay these guys. There's no question about that. You're going to be able to pay these guys. That's the money's not an issue, but the issue is you're picking your uncle, who don't he doesn't watch boxing. Hey, uncle, you want to come in and judge this week? Yeah, sure, awesome, that'd be great. We're going to pay you money. What do I do? You judge this fight. It's a 10-point system, and you explain that to them. Most rounds, if a guy wins a round, it's 10-9. If a guy knocks a guy down, it's 10-8. If a guy dominates a round completely, knocks him down twice, you're looking at a 10-7 round. But it's a simple scoring system, you would think. You watch it, you see what you see, who you think the better fighter is. And that's pretty much what they do. Guy doesn't know. He doesn't know what to look for. He doesn't know. Like, he might see a guy throwing 20 punches, and only 5 of those punches are landing, or 10 of those punches landed. Half of his punches, not even half, the punches landed. But that guy thinks he's dominating that fight. Like, oh my God, he tore that guy up. Not seeing that half of those punches were blocked. They don't know what they're looking for. How in a sport that's been around as long as boxing has not found this as a major issue when it continuously comes up, and it almost, I'm not going to let it, but it almost overshadowed a great month of May for boxing. A great month of May, man. I mean, great fights. Canelo, Ryder. I mean, you had Devin Haney and Loma. You had the Chantel versus Taylor fight. I mean, awesome big fights. Lara fought, Wood, and then Conlon fought. And you had great fights all month, but overshadowed by crappy judging. I think like I said, it started with the Canelo fight. Not too many people looked at it. And that's the problem too in boxing is we literally just overlook it. We bitch about it, and we say, "Man, something has to happen," but then we don't do anything about it. We move on and say, "Okay, whatever." But guess who doesn't get to move on? That fighter that lost that controversial call. He doesn't get to move on like we do as fans and spectators of the sport. That we bitch about it, but we don't do anything about it. Teddy Atlas has a petition. Go to his page, The Fight with Teddy Atlas, and sign that petition if you're a true boxing fan. And I know a lot of people might be afraid that, if you're big into boxing and you do press calls and and you go to the fights, that you might, be drawing the wrong attention and get yourself not allowed in. It has to change at some point, man. Fighters have to get smarter, and fans have to get smarter. The sport has to get smarter if it wants to move in the next era, the next generation, the next millennium for this sport. If it wants to catch up with the footballs, the baseballs, the basketballs of the world in America, if that's what it wants to do, it has to fix the BS that exists in the sport now. Has to fix that. If you don't fix that, then you're just going to continue to have a sport that's only shown on Saturdays. I remember growing up, Wednesday fight night. I remember Friday fight night, Saturday fight night. You don't get that anymore. I can get it, but I got to look over to Europe. I got to look up to Canada to try to get me a Thursday night fight or off the whim Tuesday, Wednesday fight. You know what I mean? Look down in Mexico, find some weird channel on Mexico where I find some fighting on. And I'm like, oh man, look, Tuesday night fight, Wednesday. But not in America where it used to be the sport in the 80s and the 90s coming in. I mean, you had, like I said, Wednesday night fights. You had Friday night fights, Saturday night fights. So it could be back to that point. It can get there, but not with the BS going on because nobody wants that in the sport, man. They don't want to have to deal with seeing, so much controversy, so much indecisiveness in the sport. Who's really worth winning? And I'm not really talking about the Haney Loma fight. That was a close fight. Dave Moretti's card was ridiculous, 116, 112. He is one of the guys we've been talking about. 2 cards that were off the wall between April and now. But boxing has to do something. Teddy Atlas is trying to do that. How far he gets, I don't know, man. And I don't know what his whole plan is behind this boxing reform, what he wants to do with it. what his whole plan is. I mean, it's got to be, to me, you get younger judges, your promoters and your promoters, managers, they don't know the judges. You don't announce judges till the night of the fight. The night of the fight, you announce who's coming in to judge. That way, these promoters and managers don't try to get into these guys' pockets, get into their head, get into uh, become buddy buddy with them. I mean, you shouldn't have a guy like Oscar De La Hoya taking guys out to dinner that are judges. Uh, but it happens, and it's I mean, you look at it now. What if you had players in the NFL taking referees out to dinner before the night of the game? What if you had coaches taking referees out for dinner the night before the game? How is that going to be looked at? You're going to be like, holy shit, yeah, if he's not in that guy's pocket, nobody is. That's exactly what you're knowing. You know he's in that. He's buying him a nice steak dinner at one of the fanciest restaurants. Yeah, that guy's in his pocket. He probably just gave him a little extra envelope before the night was over. That is boxing, man. It's a wild, wild west. It's got to be fixed. But I'm not going to let that overshadow the first 5 months of boxing, the great fights that we've seen so far this year, and the fights that are lined up going into the rest of the year to where we can really probably finish this year off as one of the strongest years for boxing. Last year failed me miserably. I had so many hopes for the Spence Crawford fight, a big fight for Fury, these guys. I had all these hopes. A lot of fights got canceled. Nothing really came through. We had a nice half, like first 3 months, 4 months of boxing that was strong last year, and then it just fell off the second half of the year. And we got some decent fights towards the end of the year, but not what we could have really gotten. This year, I feel like nobody's ducking because guess what? Now ducking brings the attention you don't want. You're now being exposed with social media, with podcast outlets, shows. Everybody's calling you out now. If you duck, they're going to tell everybody you ducked. They're going to put you out there. They're going to put your name out there. So now it's a little bit harder to duck. And you see these guys signing on. And it's not just the not wanting to look bad part. It's also the money's there, man. The money is there right now. I don't know where it's coming from, man. As a father of four and two working incomes in this house, both bust our ass to do what we do. I don't know how people spend the money that they spend nowadays, and I mean, but people are making that money, man, and they're spending it. They're spending it. Uh, so these fights, if you make them happen, the money's going to be there. I mean, the Davis Garcia fight got 1.3 million pay-per-view buys. That's That's pretty impressive. 1.3 million. The average, I mean, I think Haney and Loma was 100,000, 150,000, something like that. So kind of a on that part, especially compared to the Davis and Garcia fight, who ranked out big. But those guys got a part of that 1.3 million in sales, views and sales. So I mean, you're talking, what was it, 59.99 a pop? $60 for that fight with tax, $64. So those guys got to split some of that money. They got a percentage of that money. They've got a percentage of the ticket sales. It was pretty much sold out. All that stuff. The money's there if you make these big fights. Even if you're not making the money at the pay per view, you're going to make the money at the gates. People are coming out to watch these big time fights. Watch that Spence Crawford fight, man. It's going to bust off the chains, man. These guys are going to make, I would say, at least 8-10 million a piece. We're talking possibly, especially if they start selling it more. They seem to be out there trying to sell a fight. Crawford is constantly talking right now how he's gonna knock Spence out. I'm gonna favor Crawford in that fight against Spence. Vegas is honestly favoring Crawford. He's a favorite in Vegas right now. Weirdly enough, I would have thought that people would have probably favored the bigger, more natural 147 welterweight guy and Spence. But honestly, man, Crawford's got incredible instinct. He can switch up from orthodox to southpaw like that. Uh, I think he's a better counter puncher, and I think that's what's going to happen. The over in Vegas is over 10. I'm going to take under 10. I'm going to say 8 rounds. Crawford catches Spence with a counter, hurts him, and takes him out in the 8th round with a knockout, with a KO. You guys call me crazy. It's just my opinion. Don't get too mad at me. Tell me your opinion about that fight in the comment section. Let me know what you think will happen in that fight. Who you favor, who you want to win. If you like Spence better, if you like Crawford better, don't get angry at me for who I like. I'm not going to get angry at you for who you like. But I like Crawford in that fight. I'm not a fanboy of either of these guys. I like them as fight. I know the two best. This is going to be the best fight of the year. This is bigger than Garcia Davis. I don't care how many of Davis's social media followers flocked to his thing and how many 12-year-old girls were at that fight. This is going to be grown men at this fight. That's a fact. This is grown men at this fight. This is going to be a fight that fight fans have been wanting for 3+ years now. Should have happened 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever. I don't care. It's happening now. I'm tuning in. I'm excited. It's great for boxing. It's exciting for boxing. These two guys, I mean, that's what it's about, man. And then you're going to see Inoue and Fulton not long after that. You got a possible. I'm waiting to see if the date does get released for the Oscar Valdez and Navarrete fight. Really waiting to see if that gets and is if the due date August 12th is what I've heard really happens, man. That'd be awesome. Sorry, some of my lights flickered. That was weird. I got distracted there. If you guys noticed for a minute, a little bit off track, some weird stuff happened. I set myself up in a room down in looks like an old welding room, but it's going to be my new boxing podcast room. Probably some ghosts down here messing with me. I don't know what all is down here, what used to happen down here. But anyways, getting back to the conversation about the fight. I like Crawford, big on him in this fight, just for the reasons, like I said, his instinct, his ability to switch his stance from orthodox to southpaw, and his ability to counter. He's a more cleaner, bigger puncher, in my opinion. And in my opinion, Spence has a great jab, great footwork, and he can control the fight with his jab. And I mean, he throws a lot of punches, man, a lot of punches. So he's going to keep, I would think he's going to keep Crawford on his back foot most of the fighting, and that's why I think Crawford's going to land a counter punch because he's going to be on the defense most of the night, backing up because Crawford's definitely going to come in throwing punches, and attacking Crawford. That's what he does. He throws a lot of punches in a round. Crawford throws half that, around 30 punches, so he won't be as active, but his punches are cleaner, they're harder. So Spence has got to watch that. Overall, it's going to be a great fight. So regardless who wins, I'm not going to be angry. Even if Crawford doesn't win, I'm still not going to be angry at this fight happening. And that's what I like the most. That's what I love the most is that this fight happened in boxing. We needed it. It had to happen. It was great. Glad to see that it is happening. Then you got Inoue versus Fulton not long after that to continue our summer blockbuster, as I like to call it. Great summer for boxing. June is kind of a snoozer for boxing, but you do have the Taylor and Teofimo fight in June. Clarissa Shield fights tonight or tomorrow. Tomorrow night. I get confused on my days. She fights tomorrow night. I'm going to tune in for that, but they had to switch her opponent up. Of course, you heard Gabriella, some doping situations. Women just started the VADA uh, testing, so now some of these women may be exposed. Who's doing what? Gabriella was exposed. She was on something that she claimed was her dog's cream, her dog's medicine, and it got in her skin, and all of a sudden, felt my chest. No, that's a pretty lame excuse in my opinion. That's pretty lame. But yeah, other than that, June's not a great month for boxing. It's kind of a layoff. It's going to be relaxation. I need it. I do, and I don't. I do, and I don't. I want it. I want boxing every day of the week. I want boxing, big fights every single weekend. I want to watch something every weekend. Big and boxing, I definitely want big fights to talk about. So boring weeks don't means more homework I have to do to find interesting conversations and interesting news in boxing. So yeah, a boring week means more work for me. But after you know last week and the week before that, just a lot of boxing. So yeah, this month a snoozer, but July picks it up. You got some good fights in July. There's a few other fights that I'm missing in July that I'm gonna have to look up and double check because I know that's just more than Spence and Crawford in July. That's who we're looking forward to. That's towards the end of July. So what's going to happen in the first part of July? I'll find out about that. In a way, at Fulton, I think I was on that conversation. That's going to be a big fight. In a way, moving up from 118, I want to say to 126. Fulton is the champion at 126. So Inoue is trying to move up to, I think, it's his fourth division to become a champion in another division. Fulton is a great fighter. This is going to be a great test for Inoue. But man, Inoue is special. He is definitely special. I like him a lot. He's been on the pound for pound. I want to say number three on most people's list for a couple of years now. He's definitely held that rank up there for at least 2 or 3 years now. Uh, he is a tough fighter. Fulton going over the champion going to Japan. Uh, that's strange to me. Why is Inoue not coming here? He wants his belt. Come to me. I know he's the bigger draw, and you're going where Inoue is if Inoue says come to him because he is by far the bigger draw, the monster as they call him. Great fighter. Looking forward to that. I'm gonna favor Inoue. God, that guy's fast. He's got power. Fulton. I've seen him in trouble a few times. So with a guy like Inoue who pressures the way he does, he's definitely gonna bring that pressure to Fulton. Let's see how he reacts to it. It's two undefeated fighters, so let's check it out, man. It's going to be a good fight that is set for, I want to say, the weekend after Crawford and Spence, is what I've heard. So in the first week of August, I think that would be. But yeah. Also yesterday, man, I caught on ESPN Plus. It was in Toronto, Canada. The Eye of the Tiger. Want to give these guys a lot of props for a great show that they put on yesterday. I came across it. I was just looking for something to watch on my Hulu, and then boom, Top Rank popped up, and there it was, and I was like, "Oh crap, boxing!" So I jumped in and I started watching it. The first couple fights made me iffy. The host of the show, I don't know these guys' name. Two guys, great hosts, very knowledgeable, very professional. Really liked what they did as hosts. I wish I knew their names, man. I'd give them shout outs, dude. They were really awesome. But the Eye of the Tiger card, I think it's I want to say they're a promoter. The Eye of the Tiger is a promoter, and they promote a lot of young boxers. They get them up in Toronto, up in the Canada area. I don't know exactly where they're at, so I'll just say Canada. But I know the fights yesterday were in Toronto, and the last four fights, awesome. One fight, judging controversy, the Shabbat versus Bolaños, I think it was Bolaños, was a great fight. And don't get me wrong, man, Shabbat fought his butt off, man. So this is no fault to him at all. The fight was amazing. It was an absolute war between these two guys, but Bolaños won that fight, and he won it and convincing. I mean, both were active, both fought hard. It was a war. It was a great fight, but Shabbat lost. And even at the end, Shabbat raised his hand, his opponent's hand, an acknowledgement that, hey, I didn't win that fight. And he even said, you won that fight. He made it, you read his lips clear as day. You won that fight. He told him. He even told his trainers, everything. He won that fight. Then they lined up for a picture, and Shabbat wasn't happy, man. He stood there. He refused to smile. They're telling him, come on, man, come on, you won. And he's like, I didn't win that fight. He knew he didn't win that fight. He knew the judging because he was a Canadian guy. Once again, judging. What he got, a whole Canadian card up there. You don't have, and these guys are going to be so biased that they obviously choose a guy who shouldn't have won the fight. And it's not like he got his ass kicked. Great fight by Shabbat, dude, and nothing against you, man. You fought your ass off, man. Hell of a fight from you. And Bolaños, you guys had a war, man. That was a great fight to watch. So I won't take anything from either of these guys, man. But Bolaños won that fight, and man, shame on you judges. I wish I knew your names because I'd call you guys out on that fight directly. But three more fights after that, all great fights. Learned a couple young guys' names. The Shabbat kid, he's a good young fighter. Bolaños, good young fighter. These guys are trying to make a name for themselves in the pro level. Let me see if I can bring up my notes to figure out these other guys' names that I watched on that card. Some really good fights. A couple good young Canadian Toronto prospects that, definitely was impressed with these guys. They looked really, really good. You had the Avery Martin Duvall guy. I liked him. He was a smaller fighter fighting a bigger guy, and he did a lot of adjustments. He kept saying he was going to get on the inside, and he did. I don't know how he did it. The guy had the length on him big time. Uh, Height advantage in that one. But Duvall really impressed me with his power and his aggressiveness. So I was definitely impressed with that guy. Then it looks like Steve Clagnett. Steve Clagnett. Uh, Once again, he had a pretty decent fight, but he was definitely impressive to me. He was a guy that I enjoyed watching. Also, I don't know. There was a couple other guys I'd like to shout out, but I don't remember their names. It's not in my notes. But those three, the last three fights, were really nice, really good fights. Some very entertaining. I was definitely impressed with Eye of the Tiger and Toronto, and the host of that show, the announcers of that show, did a great job also. So definitely want to give a shout out to them for an awesome card last night. Definitely impressed. If you guys haven't checked them out, check out Eye of the Tiger. Also check out Teddy Atlas's uh, Fight Reform, where he wants to reform boxing. He's trying to get a national committee all the way across the board in America. Get rid of that one committee. Have a national committee that overlooks, holds these guys accountable for what they're doing and judging, and these refs, man. There's probably a few other things I wanted to talk about today, but I can't remember. So I've gotten so much into some other stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and end the show there. But like I said, I watch some young fighters. I'm always looking for young fighters. Thank you guys for tuning in. My last, I got a few new subscribers. That's awesome, man. I got some good views on my last video. Thank you guys for the support, man. That is awesome. I do this just for a hobby, just for fun, man. Because I love the sport of boxing. It gives me something outside of my family life that I can kind of have for myself. So I enjoy doing it. I enjoy talking the sport. So, like I said, man, feel free to comment down below and let me know what you think. Who you'd like to talk about, who you'd like to see me talk about, what kind of other conversations I might be able to hit up. Like I said, we got kind of a slow week in boxing. I told you about the Clarissa Shields fight this Saturday, which will be on, if I'm correct, the Zone. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where that fight is going to be at. It's not a pay-per-view fight. You'll be able to watch it on the Zone if you get a monthly subscription through them for $20 a month in the U.S. Not a bad price, but they also do pay-per-view, so that's what deterred me away from them. But I did like the Zone. They weren't bad. Anyways, thank you guys for tuning in, and my name is Jeff. This is the Sweet Science 365, Episode 5. You guys have a great night, man, and I'll talk to you guys next week.